Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to another episode of Poets of the East, a program where my friend Mircea Duta and I get a chance to talk with friends who are poets and colleagues and get a little bit behind merely those wonderful gardens of verse that they bring us and learn a little bit about the artists behind. Mircea, you want to say a couple words, sir, at the beginning?
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening here from Bucharest. Good afternoon from America, East Coast. I guess it should be actually it's high noon now, so good day, good noon. This does not exist, but well, it's it's quite it's quite passable for this time. Thank you very much, Rick, for inviting me to co-host to this charming meeting tonight, and I'm very eager to welcome here our today's guest. But as you are the main person in this, the main personality within this program, please name it yourself.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Doc Janning here from the middle of America's middle, a gentleman who has worked in the healthcare field for a long time, who's helped out young people, and has been a star in the poetic firmament for quite some time. Doc, welcome. How long have you been writing, sir?
Well, I wrote my first poem in 1961, the year after I graduated high school.
Wow.
And of course, it was for a young lady with whom I was madly in love.
Let's hear it for Madly in Love.
And over the next 50 years, I wrote maybe 35 or 40 poems. Late June 2012, I had a quad bypass and I flatlined on the table. Somehow or another, I was brought back, and it was as though a switch had been thrown and the poetry began flowing. I now have a catalog of over 2,000 poems.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I had heart surgery myself, and I was on the other side of that. I've been a scribbler since my early youth, 10, 12 years old, and I was worried since they were fiddling with my heart and uh, burning off some of the extra nerves that seemed to have attacked it. I had AFib, and I wondered, would I still have that poetic verve? Would I still find the desire to create this effervescent stuff, that we call poetry? So I was glad to find when I was able to scribble out a poem about heart surgery that yeah, I still had the bug. Let me ask you this: in addition to romance as a spur to poetry, did you feel a kinship with a literary tradition? In other words, were there poets whose work you admired, or was it just your spirit brought it out?
It's the latter. My spirit just opened up, and I came to consider myself a conduit and scribe for the multiverse.
Nice.
Because I feel the poetry flows through me, not from me, and that the poetry, that I don't write the poetry, it writes me.
A laudable response, sir. Let me ask you this. You were a young man in the early 60s, middle 60s, a period of great cultural turmoil.
Yes.
Were you a poet that really addressed more personal, or did you also address social and political themes?
At that time, it was more personal.
Uh-huh.
And again, over the first 50 years of my writing, maybe 35 or 40 poems over all of that time.
Okay.
They were all on the subject of love.
What would we have in poetry if it wasn't that spur of love and romance,
And of lost love.
Indeed. Did you marry young?
No, I did not marry young. I was, let me see, I was 23 when I got married, and not to the young woman I had loved.
Mm-hmm. Mircea, do you want to ask some questions about the younger days of this fine fella? His young artistic.
Well, yes, you are completely right, Rick. He is young, and I'm sure he will remain young forever because his spirit is young, and I admire him for this. But first of all, I was shocked when he told he didn't marry young because he married when he was 23. I think he was very young when he married because I married when I was 29, and I still had remorses for getting into marriage too young. So it's a kind of contradiction here, but in the same time, this gets into rhyme with what he with the fact that he feels young and he will always feel young. What I would like to ask is whether Mr. Jennings considers that poetry as inspired by romance should be or is usually sad, melancholic, nostalgic, or also a happy love could eventually inspire poetry.
It depends on my mood the particular day, whether it will be a joyful type of love poetry or something which is expressing saudade and yearning.
Oh, this is very interesting as an answer, but because actually the majority of poets would have answered, well, only sad love, only nostalgia can inspire me to write a real poetry. But your vision is far larger, and I very much admire and I appreciate this. In the same time, I would like to ask you whether different literary currents in America or ever in on the globe, uh, if you did feel some inspiration from this, or if your development as a poet was completely independent.
Uh, my development as a poet has been largely independent, although I have on occasion, for special occasions, written poetry which is of a political nature.
This is very interesting because while reading some of your poems, I had the feeling that I recognize some revolutionary tendencies of the 60s and some political dimension, even if not expressed directly, even if not expressing someone you took parts of, but I had the feeling that there was something political there. There was some of the in the very positive sense of the word, turbulent meaning of the turbulent spirit of the 60s. Or am I wrong?
It's quite possible, maybe even probable, but I can't really put a finger on it other than specific poems.
I understand. Maybe during our meeting today, I will read some of the poems which inspired me into expressing this opinion. But I guess that mainly your voice should be heard today because you're the guest. So if Rick agrees, I suggest that you start reading some of your poems. Of course, if Rick agrees with this.
I'm gonna request we go just a little bit more into Doc's life experience,
Okay.
and then we'll absolutely listened to a range of his verses. Um, I was wondering, Doc, you have talked about writing love poetry related to your life. I was wondering, did you do you have children?
I have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have you written something about your children? Have you written some work about them as well?
No, I've not.
I was curious. Okay, now let me ask you this. You know, you'd worked in the medical field. Did you address some of your writing to your experience as a medical professional?
No, I have never written anything related to my profession as a podiatrist.
Uh, not taking that step, as it were.
Exactly.
Now, you know, there's been, I think it's fair to say, a bit of a revolution in the world of poetry since the COVID era, where we're now reaching out across the globe to work in a collegial community of poets from many walks of life, from many nations and many languages. I
Right.
was wondering. Now you have lived in the Ohio area. Did you find reasonable, ample opportunities to read in local situations, or did it really only bloom later?
I have read in local situations and via Zoom. The mixture, which started with the pandemic, has been a very enriching for me.
Now, one other question I want to ask you about your work in the regional area. I understand you've received some accolades and recognition in, if not Ohio, but in the municipal areas around where you live and work. Could you talk a little bit about that? How were you noticed? And then tell us a little bit about this recognition you've received.
Well, in my early exploration of poetry, both locally and online, I noticed that there was the position of poet laureate in a number of places across the country and in other countries around the world. I thought to myself, why is there no poet laureate in my home community? And I proposed the idea to our mayor and city council, along with paperwork I had derived from a number of sources. And all I wanted there to be was a poet laureate in our community. Little did I expect to become the poet laureate. I am now 5 years into a 2-year term.
Well, there you go.
Our mayor, before my 2 years was up, came to me and said, I don't care what the paperwork says. I love your work. The city council loves your work. And by the way, I read to city council at every meeting.
How wonderful.
And she said, as long as I'm mayor, you are the poet laureate.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I also read for every major holiday and for any civic occasion where they will allow me.
Excellent. I had a somewhat similar experience. I had been heard in a poetry group in the area of Miami called Coconut Grove, a very artistic bohemian district. I had been heard and won some contests there, and evidently one of the city fathers from Coral Gables, a nearby community, heard my work and invited me to write a tribute to the founder of Coral Gables. It happened back in the 20s. who was a noted poet of the time, Robert Merrick. And he proposed that I write a tribute poem on the 100th anniversary, the centenary of this poet, Robert Merrick. And so I did some research and came up with something and received a very lovely honorarium for my services. But I was so touched that the city would recognize a poet as their founder and then search out and find someone to write a tribute. It was a really interesting experience. Certainly cleared the air in a whole other vein for that city chamber that night. Mircea, you want to ask any more questions about him before we have this fine poet with always, by the way, always with lovely artwork behind you?
Before you start that, you spoke of a centenary. Recently, Notre Dame College of Ohio, which is 3 blocks from me, had the final ceremony of their centennial year. And I was asked to provide a poem for that. So I wrote a 100-line poem.
All right. All right.
And they absolutely loved it.
Bravo.
And part of what I did, besides just writing and reading the poem, I created 2 presentation copies, one which went to the president of the college and one which went to our mayor, who was also there to speak.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
And by the way, our mayor and city council are putting a copy of every poem I have read to them into the city archives.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Mircea, do you have another question, my friend?
Well, first of all, I have to say I am impressed. This is quite a recognition. This is quite a big recognition. If I compare it to my own example, I had to leave my country in order to get recognition as a poet, not in Romania, but in the Czech Republic. Therefore, I started to write in Czech, by the way. And on the other hand, I still didn't get any honorary for, I got some diplomas, okay, but I have never had an honorary for anything I wrote as a poet. So I'm waiting impatiently that day to come, if ever comes. And because a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Jennings mentioned family and profession as subjects he never wrote about. I would like to ask him whether he thinks family and or profession could be for someone else, I mean for a poet, all in all, inspiration sources. I mean, do you think it just happened that they didn't inspire you to write your poetry? Or do you think that all in all, usually, in generally, family and profession could not be inspirational sources for poetry?
It's that's a rather complex question, and it all ties in with the way I have been dealing for a lifetime with depression and CPTSD, and the fact that I really never cared for my profession, although I was good at it. And the fact that all this time, after all these years, and it's over 60 years, I'm still in love with that first young lady.
This is fantastic. And romance poetries, romantic poems you are writing are still for her?
Some are for her, and some are for others with for whom I have an interest.
I understand.
Sometimes
This is
those loves. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
please, Nick, please, Rick.
I was just going to say, sometimes those early love experiences have such an indelible mark on us. That first time our souls are touched, that first time we find some commune in spirits. I know I have people that have touched my life who I will never forget, even though it may have been decades and scores of years. Uh, it still happens. We're still indelibly marked.
Yeah.
Well,
Completely agree.
we have investigated this fine man long enough. Let us turn to the poetic works of Doc Janning. Sir, you are free to read any of the poems that you like, that you love, especially, I might add, ones that you don't get a chance to deliver very often because they're a little longer. So, sir, you are free
I
to
am
read
free.
anything you want.
Thank you. I'm going to start with one of the earliest poems I wrote. And it's after the young lady and I had separated.
Mm.
The title is Across the Table. In the candle's soft light, by the fire's shimmering flame, I see your sweet, sweet face with love its only frame. I feel your warm presence, all my senses alight. I see your hair aglow in the warm firelight. Your perfume surrounds us with fragrance and guile, and enchanting and chaining is your gentle, sweet smile. Your voice is as music drawn from heaven above. My joyful heart sings with a rich, growing love. Across the table I bend to whisper, I love you. I reach for your hand, and you fade from my view.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Yeah. It
And very
describes.
sensitive.
Hmm?
Very sensitive.
Thank you. Thank you. This is one of my most recent poems. The title of it is The Three Dots of an Ellipsis. So it's ellipsis. If I could tell you, if I could tell you of my love and my hope for love, of my longing and my yearning, of my loneliness and my pain, of my sadness and tears which won't flow. If I could tell you, if I could tell you of my life and my death within life, of my past and my many pasts, of myself and its brokenness, of the writing I do and being a conduit and scribe, of the writing and the way it writes me, of the words and the worlds within them. If I could tell you, if I could tell you, ellipsis, if I, if I could, if I could tell, if I could tell you, if I could tell, if I could, if I, if, and it ends with a fading ellipsis.
Beautiful, sir. Absolutely beautiful.
Wonderful, wonderful poem.
I try.
Well, you
Some
succeed.
people say I'm very trying.
I think the longing, the indescribable nature of love. Poets will try again and again and again and again to try to capture some portion of the love, the mystery of love, the longing of love, the joy of love. But a lot of times, all we're left with is the ellipsis. Beautifully done, sir. Beautifully done.
Thank you. And the line, "If I Could Tell You," is the title of a tune by Yanni.
Ah,
And I happened to be listening to a video of that along with his explanation of the background, and all of a sudden this just flowed.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Sir.
This is titled Spectre. Spectre. Driving home along city streets and byways, through alternating light and shadow, light falls on me and is snatched away by the shadows between. I am seen, then unseen, there, then not, and I travel on through the night, an intermittent spectre of life.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I sense, and maybe I read too much, that same vein, that same spirit of appearing, disappearing relates, I think, in part to that love. That love appears and then disappears. That we are live, we are vivid, and then we fade and we are quiescent. Beautifully done, sir.
One poem which I did not write, which I use for my, not only to explore myself, but I've used in scouting, in teaching youth to explore themselves, to discover who and what they are, is a poem by an Israeli poet, now deceased, who went by the name of Zelda. The poem is titled "Each Person Has a Name." She originally wrote it in the masculine, and I have made some tweaks so that it is all gender. I'm going to read the poem first, and then I'm going to read it again with my interpretations, my personal interpretations. Each person has a name given them by God and given them by their parents. Each person has a name given them by their stature and their way of smiling, and given them by their clothes. Each person has a name given them by the mountains and given them by their walls. Each person has a name given them by the planets and given them by their neighbors. Each person has a name given them by their sins and given them by their longing. Each person has a name given them by their enemies and given them by their love. Each person has a name given them by their feast days and given them by their craft. Each person has a name given them by the seasons of the year and given them by their blindness. Each person has a name given by the sea and given them by their death.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Bravo.
Again, that is a poem by Zelda, an Israeli poet.
Okay.
I need to read it again with my personal interpretations of each line.
Please do.
Each person has a name given them by God. Shachar Misharer ben Avraham v'Sarah. which means dawn poet, son of Abraham and Sarah, and given them by their parents. I no longer use it. I am now Doc. Each person has a name given them by their stature, compassionate, and their way of smiling, open, and given them by their clothes, casual. Each person has a name given them by the mountains, secret, and given them by their walls, cryptic. Each person has a name given them by the planets, wanderer, and given them by their neighbors, friend. Each person has a name given them by their sins, exile, and given them by their longing, he who yearns. Each person has a name given them by their enemies, SOB, and given them by their love, tenacious. Each person has a name given them by their feast days, chef, and given them by their craft, poet. Each person has a name given them by the seasons of the year, dreamer, and given them by their blindness, fool. Each person has a name given by the sea, wanderer, and given them by their death, free.
Lovely, sir.
I was about to say that the initial poem, given them each person has a name, was the most beautiful from everything I heard. But your interpretation of the poem with your interpretation is even much more beautiful. It's really wonderful and very deep. It's philosophical, and this makes me and helps me understand in a new key your poetry, your poems, and your life philosophy. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to ask you to read one too in just a minute. Why don't you go ahead and look one up? You have such a wonderful poem about looking at a woman across a bridge, Mircea. If you'd maybe look for that one or something in a similar vein. I'm going to read you one of mine that speaks to how when we love somehow without boundaries, without borders, without limit. And at the same time, we live in a world of limits. We live in a world of where time and space provide these constrictures on this wonderful spirit of love that is so ill-contained. So here we go. This is a piece I call Warm Calculations. How much love, how much time, how much warmth allowed to climb the wide walls of shelf of self? How dare the eyes, indeed the lip, needs the seeds replace to fill the space between the loves in family time? The subtle balance, the slippery climbs, some time for friends in arguments allure. The natural never whirl, choices swerve, judgment steps on tentative, representative words, whose ideas hurdle tipsters, tiptoe turtles on weighted cautious moments. Outside the fence frequents events volcanic. Foments revolt of love, measured, mastered, cast at play faster. Could we compare two weaving, leaving doves to loves to flowers fine, half-argued choice of child to friend to find 1,000 billion words, choices heard, without repose of time relent? This soulful face, replaced with bastard wine, despised, deriding time, decisions erased in human long division, villain time, in tandem tug with spurious space replace, content to tear, arming hearts with alarming arts, past all metallic strain, electric thumps hide the signing sighs in tearful, throated lumps. Love's web soft embrace, dewy prisms paint, green leaves in light, wild heart, starting smile delight. Weigh the hours on thine eyes' tender scales, the whales of depart art. Weigh the hours, count the blooded hours, alone, unphoned peace, counting time, ridiculous, sublime, of wasted water, tasted, running down danger's cheeks, uncobbled, clouded, downcast lane, wasted moments, monuments to independent moods, in brewed pitch, scalding broth, the sloth's sad plight, indeed schism, indecision's muddy mirror, count the times, hurtled corpse recline, measured, mastered, time, the wild and woolly miles of wiles, treasured kisses, breakout blisses, thundered caress, yearning, the sky, the sky, the sky is burning by memories aflame. What was the name? Balanced by the greater graphs of past? Calculators barely scratch my memory's sieve. Yet I grieving caught, catching, wrenching wet wretches, choice chance to dance the waltz of shadowed romance. Mental graves wash over graves of history's mystery. Mental waves wash over graves of history's mysteries. Mental waves wash over graves of history's mystery. Ring round the royal reality of life. Remember the ritual brother's virtual wife. Echo the favorite uncle's strife. Cancel the baby brother's new lover's clover wife. Warm calculations.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Mircea, do you have one of those love poems of yours, those marvelous pieces of yours?
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I will read a poem called The No-Kissing Moon. We kiss without taste. We kiss without love. We kiss without lust. We kiss without excitement. We kiss without tongues. We kiss without mouth. We kiss without lips. We kiss without eyes. We kiss without faces. We kiss without shapes. We kiss without forms. We kiss without images. We kiss without imagination. We kiss without visions. We kiss without pictures. We kiss without dreams. We kiss without reality. We kiss without Dichtung. We kiss without Wahrheit. We kiss without kisses. We kiss without a pacts. We kiss without kissing. And so there's no one to ever take, there's nowhere, no one to ever take note of our kissing. There's nowhere, no one to ever pay attention to our kissing. There's nowhere, no one to ever see it, hear it, or feel it, not even ourselves. And so there's nowhere, no one to ever write about our kissing, but that forgotten poet, which himself has never, nowhere kissed anyone, and so at least he is thinking of us, a couple striving for a kiss, as himself for poetry.
Bravo, sir.
The yearning expressed in that poem is very, very touching. It hits me deeply.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Beautiful, beautifully expressed.
Doc, do you have a couple more you'd like to share with us, sir?
Well, since in the poem you mentioned kissing without tongue, this is a senru I wrote a couple of years ago. It was based on a prompt which was given, and the prompt is the phrase, "My tongue is." My tongue is a pen dipped in sensual ink. I write on your skin.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
Very beautiful. Very, actually, a unique metaphor which is developed a lot around this idea of the tongue like a pen. What could be more beautiful for a poet? Really wonderful. And again, very sensitive.
Thank you.
I remember a fable of Balzac writing love poetry on his paramour's body. A lovely thought. And certainly the tongue would be one of the appropriate instruments.
Yes, it would be.
Sir, read on, read on.
This is Doorways of Time. Dreaming inscapes of infinity echo through soundless dark, weave into surreal existence, become ambient doorways of time, thresholds of what may be, and you are. This is titled Synesthesia. Chimes of love ring in silent joy amid memories of midnight. They echo in breathless Mazarin hues against a tapestry of stars and bell their ecstasy into eternity. An ecstasy proclaimed in colors of imagination, on veils of mystery and delight, an evocation of endless synesthesia in transcendent emotion and dreams.
Lovely.
This
Your
gets,
question-
this is a nature poem. It has a, it's based on a quote from Khalil Gibran. Trees are poems the earth writes upon the sky. The title is Poetry of Trees. In the cascading softness of dusk, in the earthquake of dawn, in the oeuvre of the forest, in a concatenation of trees, lies a grove of memories. Memories of sun and cloud, of rain and snow, of storm and calm, of seasons and time, of life and metamorphosis. Knowledge sacred and arcane, of ages and the multiverse, of eons and the earth, of millennia and man, of centuries and change, and wisdom to be shared in their infinite poetry, shared with the sky, shared with the stars, and with all who will listen.
Lovely. Lovely.
That's going to be going to the National Arbor Day Foundation.
Very nice. A lovely metaphor of the trees as those decorations. Just wonderful. I thought I would share another one of mine that treats on a little different kind of love. This of mother and child, and those very special gifts. This is called The First Gifts. It's written in memory of Susan, my grandmother, Dorothy, my mother, and my wife, Linda. The first gifts. Yes, you welcomed those babes at your breast, gave them from your own life sustenance. Thought first of them, their pleasure, their pain, their needs, then some other, then yourself. You brought them through the most holy, sacred gate they will ever enter into the world and into human life. It can be readily said you gave them the first gifts, before the gods at the cradle round bestowed those precious others. You clothed them in flesh, gave them their first form. What cells and man and fashion could give, you gave first. Before your gift there was nothing, and your giving self made every other giving possible. When the first cry is heard, it calls your name. When each searching hand, it reaches out for yours. When you press those tiny lips to your breast and smell those first tender breaths, those sweet garden scents are meant for you alone. As tiny fingers first begin that long, lonely search, they search first for you. Never is this new being more beautiful than when seen with your eye. Never is the kind of blessing given than that is given from your eye and heart. No wonder Mother is so universally blessed. No wonder such special blessedness belongs first and last to mothers. She has given so much of her flesh and her heart, the first gives.
Oh, wow. It's so sensitive. And in the same time, Rick, it's actually, I recognize you in one of the dimensions of your poetry, the one connected to, yes, and I have an answer now. Family can inspire to poetry. It depends very much on each individual poet and on what is happening to them during their lives. But yes, mother, grandmother, father, as the closest within our families, can inspire into such wonderful poems like this.
Thank you, brother. Doc, I was wondering, could you share one of your, what I'm going to call municipal poems, or your poems that treat on the city?
Well,
If it takes a minute, that's okay. We can just cut and paste.
I will read you a poem which reflects a park which is within the city.
Wonderful.
Oh, no. In fact, here, this is titled Song of South Euclid.
South Euclid, Ohio, right?
Yes, South Euclid, Ohio. Songs of day and night echo through the ages, from before today into the beyond of tomorrows. They carry the hopes and dreams, wants and needs of all on their journey of time. They are songs of hopes and dreams, songs of wants and needs, songs of love and joy, songs of sadness and sorrow, songs of clouds and sun, songs of wind and rain, songs of snow and ice, songs of trees and flowers, songs of the seasons, songs of life. They all resound along streets and highways which connect our city. They bring together homes and businesses, people and government, and they all come together in the song of South Euclid. Come together and thrive, which is the last line is the motto of the city.
Wonderful. You would you be comfortable reading another one, sir, in that vein?
Okay, another in that vein is, let me see. This is titled Euclid Creek Park. I stand in a valley formed by nature, its hills shaped by man, traceries of time all about. I move slowly, listen in silence, to hear voices of stone whisper in languages of eons, the wisdom of trees speaking in susurration of leaves, the stream murmuring love to its stony bed, and the ancient sigh of Aeolian breeze, a tapestry woven of light and shadow, a tapestry of days and nights and the weather of ages, a tapestry woven in the fire and ice of time, embroidered in all the shapes and colors of the multiverse. I journey with the valley and starship Earth. We journey from the past and through the present. We journey across horizons of infinity into an unknown future. And we exist in infinite moments.
Beautiful, sir. Beautiful.
Well, while comparing the long poems by Doc and the short ones, you see, the short ones are very concentrated, and usually they are built around a very strong metaphor. He's developing actually by only a few words, while the long ones are actually developing a feeling within a whole line of metaphors. So such an interesting way to build a poem.
Thank you.
Mircea, I was wondering, sir, if you would, since our guest poet is such a poet of place, maybe you could find one of your poems that treats on a place, on a scene, whether it be you're coming to Slovakia, where you are, the Czech Republic, where you got some recognition, or maybe some other poem you have of a place. And I'm going to abuse your ears with one of my poems about place. It's not necessarily so much a praise of place, but more of a horror of a place. This is called Up on Garbage Mountain. I lived in Miami in the South End, where it's agricultural for a while, and one of the very most prominent monuments to human activity there was a giant pile of garbage. It was so massive it could be seen for tens and tens of miles. Florida is very flat, so it really stands out. On top of that, it's adjacent to the Biscayne Bay National Park. So the effluent runs right into the national park. And I wrote this to call people's attention to some of the inherent issues related. So this is called Up on Garbage Mountain. Up on Garbage Mountain, along the Biscayne Bay, although the seagulls stop for dinner, they seldom fly away. It would seem a foul idea to build it up so high. It's not too wise to leave out all that garbage piling higher, faster, wide. Mountainous high, strenuous glazes, heat hassle, hazes, layers, strumming, summing suns, drumming, heating, stuffed, surprise. Trucks take dumps on hasty humps, leak, laughing, pungent snares, vapors, drifting, wafting, lifting, sifting in the airs, waves, welling, falling, smelling up the air. Don't rush right up to drink the cup without a sealed tight mask to wear. We don our yellow gloves there, our acid-tested boots, completely airtight overalls and air-conditioned suits, with special pressure steel-toed boots amid the gushing whoosh. Bugs are mighty strange there. We've quite a special strain. The chemicals they've hatched in resemble acid rain. They carry mighty virus, sure, a highly aggressive brood. So do not park your car nearby. They've acquired a taste for tires, radials are good. The roaches that survive there have carborundum shells, and when they fly from place to place, falling, sparking trails are traced. The mud that moves, we call it, watching some crawl by. Don't get any on your shoe, it'll eat right through you quick. And should you dare to poke it, it'll probably eat your stick. One thing you'll find amazing as it reaches cloud-rimmed Olympic heights. One thing true it can do, bring into a tourist's well-earned view a look at that strange and bloated large, a Jersey in a garbage barge, ripe as homeless and as sad a sight as a garbage truck out of luck and gas with a year's young load of your own waste. Like the taste? Up on Garbage Mountain.
Well, I recognize Rick's personifications and social critics on one hand, and in the same time, his very personal spirit. I mean, spirit of ironization, of irony, and even post-irony sometimes.
Well, I like to make people think and laugh at the same time.
That poem exhibits a great degree of synesthesia to me, because the words form pictures, and then those pictures evoke the aromas, shall we say, which emerge from that heap.
So,
That's right.
Mircea, were you able to find one of your place poems there?
Um, it is actually not a very happy poem, which I wrote when the day I got 20, and which I translated into English. Actually, not me, but my translator into English, Judith Ontol, much later. It is called Birthday. And still you dance of those impenetrable trembling spirals, you silent fools, fools floating on that mild, soft water of the lake of your own thoughts and ways and rules, and no more giving days to take. A cloud of wild old electrons in love seems to dissolve your whole eternity above into some dreams, while among you heraldic snows to be too small to fall, leak yet unburned from apricot tree leaves. You don't know them at all. And still you manage to comprise those endless mirrors under empty skies of questions coming through. And still another us, another you, a Monday sunset to be paid its bill, and still no time to understand that there's no back, no end, no place to go away, no way to go along, no singing and no song, just them, fools spining on their dancing track, still silenced and amazed, just getting back within their dance, just asking for no chance, no ways, no rules, just silenced fools, just fools amazed, poor fools, poor fools.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Very evocative. Very evocative. The
Yes.
cynicism of youth.
Well, it was on my own address, so it may be forgiven.
Of course, of course. Doc, we
Sir.
got time for a couple more. What would you like to share, sir?
Okay. This is a longer piece which I wrote and then realized it could actually be used as an art song. And when I read it myself on occasion, I will read it with a background of Vivaldi's Concerto for Lute, two violins, and Continuo in D. Its title is The Song of Lovers. On a peaceful, pleasant afternoon, in the warm and silken sun, does your soul yet dream of a road? Of a faraway road to an old, old town where boats still glide on a pond, where still is heard the sound of a maple's leaves rustling a peaceful song, where there is yet the shade of those gnarled old trees under which two lovers met, and still are the starlit nights when the excuse me, and are still the starlit nights when when their souls still fly to the sound of a gentle lute, where all of life was peaceful and sweet as the song of lovers. Remember the afternoons we spent on the soft grass by that pond? I will always hear that sweet and gentle, rustling, leafy song, and the soft, soft sound of a zephyr's breath when kites were afloat in the sky, and all of life was peaceful and sweet as the song of lovers. In rain and fog, I still hear the words I spoke from poems of that time. My joyous passion and passionate longing have never fled, and my love resounds in the voice of the lute, which sings and sighs for you. I wish I could find in its voice the words I need to express my lasting, loving dreams of life and love so peaceful and sweet as the song of lovers. In my dreams, my heart still hears the voice of that lute playing and singing as it waits, longing, wanting, forever in love with the girl you were in those dream-filled, love-filled days, when all of life was peaceful and sweet as the song of lovers. Now I yearn for long, long nights when once again my soul may dream and dream sweet dreams of you, as I dream of that time so long ago, which has ne'er faded away. Shall time return ere again for you, for me, for us, when life began in love-filled nights and wondrous sunny days, and all of life was peaceful and sweet as the song of lovers.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. One of the questions that I love to ask my friends, the poets, given that our society pretends to devalue poetry and yet uses it rigorously throughout, when a young person asks you, should I do poetry? Should I spend my time writing verse? Or is it a dead end that no one pays attention to and no one takes seriously? What do you say to a question like that, sir?
In answer to a question of that nature, I tell the person not to be concerned about who will read it, if someone will read it, to write it for themselves, to satisfy their own psycho-emotional needs. If by chance someone else reads it, hears it when they read it, and it makes an impact, that makes it all the richer for you as an experience.
Now, one last question, and I think you're uniquely positioned to answer this question. I like to ask my poet friends, does the poet owe society anything? Is there a poetic duty? Or, as you just said, should we really write for ourselves? But I am curious. I think that there is, well, let me be quiet for a moment, although you know my work. Do you think poet owes society anything?
That is a difficult question.
That's why I only ask it of poets.
If one is a poet laureate, yes, one owes society, especially that of the community which selected them. Beyond that, it would be a matter of individual choice. If you feel that you are going to contribute to society with a particular poem, that's one thing. If not, and you don't want to use it in that fashion, then don't. Just keep it to yourself, or to read in general in public, or on online readings. But the majority of poets, I would say, don't feel they owe anything to society in particular. I do because I'm a poet laureate. So I read for city council at every meeting. I read for all the major holidays. I read for every city event where I am asked. The college, which lies within our city, of course, I read for them recently. Our local garden club has requested poems, and for that, I've enlisted other local poets in writing poems about gardens. And now I've been asked by an NGO, which is doing a fundraiser, to contribute to that event. And we have the Pan American Masters Games coming to Cleveland. And our mayor asked me if the committee that's organizing the event for here locally wanted me to, would I read a poem for the opening ceremony? And I said to her, that's a silly question. Because of course I'll read for it. And the city has sent me to our state capital, Columbus, Ohio, to participate and represent them at a meeting of the National Federation of State Poetry Societies last year. And this year they sent me to Columbus to read as part of a poetry showcase at the Ohio State Fair. So I feel I'm contributing to other people's awareness of our city, and in fact, it has led to a couple of businesses relocating here.
Wonderful.
So it has benefited the city.
Mircea, I was wondering, sir, do you have any final questions for our very talented poet?
I think I'm going to spine around your question, Rick. If a poet is not a laureate poet of a city or of his state or something, but he got some diplomas or some awards from private organizations, does he still owe something to that society? I mean, to the society around him or her, or particularly to those organizations?
Okay, if the poet is sponsored by an organization in any way, yes, the poet owes that organization some work. And if that work is of benefit to society as a whole, that is absolutely wonderful. I recently read for NAMI of Greater Cleveland, NAMI meaning National Association of the Mentally Ill. And it was something that I felt I should do because I've been dealing with depression all my life.
I understand.
Sir, I want to thank you so much for your time. You've been more than generous. It's always wonderful to learn something about one of these talented poets. And I just have to thank you so much for your time and tell you that we appreciate your lovely work.
All I have is time, also parsley, sage, and rosemary.
Mircea, any final thoughts, sir?
Thank you very much, Doc, for your wonderful poems, for your wonderful thoughts. And yes, I agree with Rick. It's a joy and an honor to have some guests within our program. Thank you very much, Rick, for this opportunity. Thank you very much, Doc, for your poetry and deep philosophy.
So have a wonderful day and a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.